So maybe just a very brief introduction and the way that I understood, the expectation on this in particular discussion on the topic of the withdrawing of the fiscal supports and the alignment with the medium-term fiscal plans. When I received this invitation, I wasn't sure exactly what the angle was expected to be taken, particularly because those that are working now with in the European region, in the European Union, we can see that the process that is taking place in this region is very particular. It's a region that had started to respond to the crisis in a very similar way to other regions. But they have put in place a package that is one of the largest in the world for the recovery, and it's a process that is only starting. So speaking about withdrawing at this point is probably not the best way to approach it. I would rather say this is more about how you manage this process and how you manage this transition. So the way that I organized this presentation basically is to talk a little bit about, from the angle of allocative efficiency and fiscal stimulus. So how you bring, these packages of fiscal stimulus in a way in which you really do that in the most efficient way, and how you deal with the challenges and the opportunities that could bring. So what I would refer to is specifically to the European Union experience through what they call the Resilience and Recovery Facility, which is the instrument that they are using for channeling the stimulus package. And I will specifically discuss a little bit on example of Romania. And the reason for this is that the World Bank has been working with this country in particular, supporting them in developing their own plan and now in the implementation of the plan. I will try to show some results so far, of the progress so far, and some lessons and takeaways that might be relevant to the discussions we are having today. So first, some reflections very quickly about what we understand for this allocative efficiency and fiscal stimulus, and why this is important and relevant in these times. Of course, fiscal stimulus is a critical instrument for effective recovery in any crisis. There is this expectation that when a crisis happens, you come in with this anti-cyclical efforts through stimulus programs that are expected to be big, fast, and effective. Right? This is kind of the principles that guide them. And in the case of the post-COVID stimulus packages, these have been, amongst the largest in the modern era. This is something that are very particular, have been, all across the world. And so, of course, we should expect a lot of potential challenges across those that are unexpected and couldn't be expected when they came in. And these challenges are, both in terms of how you use and come up with these packages on time, and how you implement those stimulus packages in order to get the results that you want. Here, basically, the challenge has to do with calibrating the programs in terms of size, timing and pace of how you implement them, and then how you allocate and use them. And the discussion today, how you withdraw from there and you align with the medium-term expectations is part of that management process and should be understood as part of the design of these programs. So when it comes to public expenditure management, because this is one part, maybe one of the most important parts of the stimulus package, but it's one particular part, then it also comes the challenges related to allocation. And the use of these programs in the best possible way. One aspect has to do with how you align the priorities, because the normal and regular priorities are now competing with emergency priorities that came in during the crisis, and the emerging priorities, which are seen as the opportunities that were seen as part of this process, and particularly as part of the recovery. And in this case, in the case of this particular crisis, this is very evident, and that's something that the European Union had highlighted in their program. Secondly, it has to do with the monitoring, surveilling, and ensuring alignment with medium-term plans. Rather than referring to a withdrawing process, it's more about how you manage this process so that you get aligned with those medium-term plans, and in the end, you accommodate your stimulus program into those. And finally, the challenge related to absorption, which is also relevant, because sometimes it's not just about allocating the resources, pouring in the money, but also being able to actually absorb in the pace that is expected, so that you do not create new disalignments or new inequalities as part of the inability to absorb the benefits of these programs. So these are the kind of the challenges in which I want to position this discussion. And in the case of Europe, here I can show you some of the numbers. If you look at it in terms of percentage of the gross national income, the European package is the largest of these stimulus programs that we've seen worldwide. It's 17% in the case of Europe, compared to 15 or 16% in the US, or 4% in China. Maybe with the latest additions that they have in the US, they have now the first one. But by the time when the pandemic hit and the recovery packages came in, the European package was the largest one. And the way that they did that, if you see in this table at the right, basically they doubled the level of expenditures in as a region. From a normal medium-term program of 1,000 billion or 1 trillion euro, you basically doubled that allocation. First, with the first response, with the emergency allocation of around 500 billion, and then with an additional 750 billion for the recovery itself. Now, this recovery, what the European Union did was try to come up with an approach that will not only represent, the fiscal effort and the pouring the resources so that those could help in this recovery, but also to come up with some rules that will, for one, ensure that the allocation and use of these resources is somehow related to those priorities and opportunities that are coming up in terms of supporting member states to recover, in terms of helping private sector to kickstart in the process, and then to learn lessons from the crisis so that they can get prepared as they go. So it was not just the money there, but also it was related to the use of it. But also, and if you can see here, particularly in what they refers on the support to the member states in the Union, is the alignment to the existing surveillance instruments, so that the addition of these resources do not create undesired effects in terms of fiscal and macroeconomic impacts. So just to have an idea of the numbers, from this 750 billion euro that was put at disposal of the member states, the big chunk of it is what they call the Recovery and Resilience Facility, which is a pot of money that was allocated to member states in a way with the different criteria for them to be utilized in a period of 4 years, with some very specific objectives, with a mandatory allocation focusing on the two big objectives or driving objectives for the use of this money, which they call the green transformation and the digital transformation, asking each of the member states to come up with very well-prepared, ex-ante, costed plans as a requirement to access to these resources, and then aligning all the investments and the reforms that are that will be part of this program with the existing medium-term reform programs. So the alignment was a requirement from the beginning in the case of this facility, and the pairing of investments and reform was another characteristic that has to do that will come up, you know, very handy in the time that when you have to make this alignment happen and monitor the macroeconomic effect of these plans. So in order to access to these resources, every member state will have to prepare a national recovery and resilience plan, with is a program, is a 4-year or 3-year or 4-year program of reforms and investments that has to be part of the existing national reform programs that they typically use to monitor progress and alignment and convergence in the European region. It has to be consistent with the priorities that were identified with one of the most important instruments that they are using in this case, which is called the European semester. They have, of course, to be aligned with the national reform programs, with the energy and climate plans, with the transition plans, and with partnership agreements that are part of other operational programs that they have. It should include those measures that are aimed at addressing the challenges of both the green and digital transitions, as I mentioned. It should, explain how this process is going to strengthen the recovery at the different levels of society, and then it should come up with an implementing structure that is able to report and be adjusted in the context of this European semester, which is the critical tool that they are using. What they did was to come up, with some pillars in which they will allocate the resources. They will come up with common result indicators that every member state will need to look at or to use it for the purpose of monitoring, together with others that each member state will have. But at least they will have 14 critical indicators that are going to be used across all member states. And then once these member states prepare these plans, they are assessed through specific criteria that the European Commission, as part of the implementation of this plan, has to look at. Whether the plan is expected to contribute these medium-term challenges, or whether the plans contain the measures that will help this transition to the green and digital objectives, whether the plan will have a lasting impact, whether the plan is expected to contribute and to strengthen the growth potential, the job creation, etc., all these important elements and objectives, whether the justification provided by the member states in terms of costing is reasonable and plausible and commensurate to the expected impact and results, and then whether the plan contains those measures for implementation of reforms and investments that represent a coherent action, and finally, that the arrangements that are in place will ensure a proper and effective implementation. So all of these criteria was checked by with the European Commission before accepting these plans and then making each member state able to access to the resources. So in this, the function of this plan or this facility is very simple. Each member state will prepare their plan, they will have the assessment, they will allocate the resources, they will provide an advice of 30% of the resources at the beginning, and then they will start a cycle in which the member state will implement the programs. There will be revisions, and they will go with this cycle every year, getting additional payments. What is more important here, and this relates to the discussion today, I think, is the existence of this instrument for monitoring and surveillance of the fiscal situation and the implementation of the reform plans, which is the European semester, by which twice a year they have an already established procedure by which they look at how the implementation is going, not just in terms of what the plans were supposed to be doing, but also in terms of all the macroeconomic and fiscal effects of how the resources are having. And then they will make the adjustment every year according to that process. This is the way in which, by incorporating into the normal instruments, they will ensure the medium-term alignment of the implementation of these plans. So in the case of Romania, for example, which is the case that, we are supporting right now, we are talking about here a program of 30% of GDP. They have already identified 64 individual reforms that are related to the plan and more than 100 mega investments that they were selected. They are monitoring this through more than 500 milestones and targets around the 6 pillars. They are following what they call the country-specific recommendations from the Commission that are aligned to that European semester. And then they have allocated and followed those indicative allocations for the green and digital transition and established the control system. So with that, the Romanian plan is a plan around 15 pillars that you can see it is in all sectors. It is very comprehensive with a set of reforms that are specifically identified to move into this medium-term trend and making sure that the reforms will take place on time so that this alignment will happen without creating any macroeconomic or fiscal imbalances. And then, of course, a package of investments that is what they need to absorb. This just to show, the type of indicators or milestones in terms of reforms that they have to be implementing over time, and making sure that then when the period is completed, they have implemented those necessary reforms so that the alignment comes in according to that plan. And similarly, in terms of indicators for the investments they are doing. So far, what's going on with this facility? Right now, all 27 member states in the European Union have developed their plans and they have approved their plans. Currently, the Commission has more than 3,600 indicators and more than 2,004 milestones to be monitored as part of these 27 packages of plans. They have 21 member states have received the pre-financing disbursement already, and 7 member states have received the first payment because they have 2 payments per year. First payment they received in 7 member states. 2 have received the second payment, and there is dashboard and everything, all the mechanics there in place. But as you can see, the level of disbursement is only starting right now. So it is not the time to discuss, how they are going to withdraw from here, but how they are going to absorb this in a way that this is over time aligned with their medium-term plans. So I think, what we are trying to do to show here is that it is still too early to assess on whether, this plan and these stimulus packages are sort of responding or yielding the expected impact. It is more about managing and aligning the packages, and this is not an easy process. It requires very strong institutional setups like the ones that were present in the case of the European Union. We know that there are many other regions and countries in the world that they just came up with the stimulus package, put the money there, and now they are in the process of seeing how they get out of that without altering their medium-term frameworks. If you have a setup like this, maybe there is way to do this in a more organized way so that the alignment happens over time in a more natural way. So this, we believe, this facility is a good example of the strategic alignments and integration that could yield the expected results. We think that, the focus on strategic objectives and the idea of focusing on a specific results is an interesting approach and innovation, what to consider as we move forward with these programs. Sometimes, in this case, we are experiencing that excessively detailed and complex instrument could make things more challenging in terms of implementation. I think the European countries are now sort of experiencing that situation already. This could create also, in an unequal environment in which, the different countries are in a different situation and different capacities, will create also probably that some inequalities that will result in unintended and negative results. over time. And the case of Romania is a good example of those type of challenges. So we'll see the result. We cannot say at this point whether, you know, this tool, this instrument, this approach is something that will guarantee the results of the recovery objectives and the stimulus programs. But what we can see is that they have invested a lot in terms of creating not just, you know, the tools to manage these resources in a proper way and in a more purposely way, but also to automatically align with the existing setups so that this transition to the medium-term objectives happens as part of this plan. So let me stop there. I hope this, you know, sharing this information will help in your discussion. I know that you are now going to discuss more country-specific situations, looking at the specific programs, but maybe looking, you know, at how this is happening in other parts of the world will also help you, you know, have some information that could be helpful. Thank you very much, and I stop here.